Strawberry growers in Australia have this afternoon been offered $1 million compensation package in the wake of multiple acts of sabotage on their stock. Sewing needles and pins have now been found in punnets of strawberries in Queensland as well as Western Australia. That follows cases of contamination in New South Wales, Tasmania and South Australia. It's prompted growers to start dumping their stock by the truckload. There are 7 brands affected countrywide in Australia, and New Zealand supermarkets have stopped importing all Australian strawberries. Some are calling it an act of terrorism. However, while the government has called for an inquiry and while police investigate, desperate growers are actually urging Australians to keep buying the fruit, cut them up and remove any pieces of metal they might find. A short time ago, I spoke to one of those growers, Adrian Schultz. He runs Loverberry and is also the Queensland Strawberry Growers Association Vice President.
It's actually been devastating because I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the strawberry glut that's occurred over here that we've had for several weeks, which has depressed prices. But just when that seemed to be easing is when this incident happened. And, of course, that little bit of increase in price that we were hoping to see has disappeared.
There almost isn't a state or territory in Australia that hasn't been affected by this. To what extent has your business been affected by it?
Well, we're seriously wondering, we're going on a day-to-day basis, literally, and at this stage we don't know if we're going to be able to set up properly for next year. It's quite serious.
Yes, it sounds devastating, as you say. What have you done in reaction to it? What have you had to do with your stock, with your employees, etc.?
We've had to warn all our employees of the situation. I mean, they're all pretty savvy these days with the internet and Facebook, and they're aware of what's happening. But finding a home for the strawberries at the moment is the difficult part because, as you know, some of our larger retailers have chose to take the strawberries off the shelves. But look, the positive thing, the good thing is we're getting a lot of support from the public. There are a lot of public Facebook things getting set up where they're showing support for the farmer, and they're saying, we want the strawberries back on the shelves. We want to keep buying strawberries. The answer to dealing with these maniacs is just to slice up the strawberries, chop them up.
And so you're encouraging people to still buy them, but just obviously take great care. What's the impact if people don't do that and people stay away? We've seen videos today of Donnybrook dumping what looks like truckloads of strawberries into the ground. Do you see more of that happening, or have you had to do a little bit of that?
Yes, and that's ultimately what you've got to do. Also, if you travelled around here, you'd see a lot of fields that were green a few days ago that are now brown because they've had to be sprayed out. There are several businesses around here that have had to finish up completely. We're not quite there yet, but our concern is also for the seasons like your own and our friends in Stanthorpe and Victoria, South Australia and Western Australia at the moment, whose season is in process, how this is going to affect all these other areas.
Adrian, you obviously are talking with your colleagues, with perhaps other competitors and growers. What's the feeling out there about the origin of this? Have you got any idea what type of person the culprit is, or where it's happened? What stage from farm to store can this sort of sabotage take place?
Well, look, the police are in the midst of an investigation into this. It would appear that the original incursion was a genuine situation, but since then, we believe a lot of these incidences have been copycats, bloody-minded people who perhaps want 2 minutes of fame, or they want, or who knows what they want or what they're thinking. But it's so widespread that it can't be just one individual. It's become viral, and it's dangerous.
And you must be desperate to get on top of it. Tell us about your fears about perhaps future decisions of people, as you say, in Australia or further afield here in New Zealand and other places that you export to. Are you worried about the decisions that they might make in the future?
That's right. And the biggest impact so far, I believe, is there are, at the moment, no Queensland strawberries being imported into New Zealand, and I believe it has had an effect on the Western Australian exports. They rely heavily on that as well. And yes, it is a concern. Queensland itself has made some recent inroads into developing export markets, and of course it's going to have an impact. And this is what I don't think these people understand, the far-reaching consequences of what they do.
Can you survive this and your company, Loverberry? And already, what sort of monetary impact has this made?
It's hard to put it into dollars at this stage, but I believe that we will have to adjust our business setup for next year. We won't be operating at the same level that we are now, or we're going to have to operate differently. Yes, it's going to have an impact, and already a lot of the larger farms in this area have had to install metal detectors into their operations, and those things aren't cheap. They're expensive, and unfortunately, I don't think they're going to get any more for the strawberries just because they've got a metal detector in their pack house.
That's strawberry grower Adrian Schultz.